Welcome back. Today on Blind Truth, we're diving into the shadows to uncover the top 20 nightmarish discoveries with our 2024 update. Get ready to unveil the unexplained as we delve into the mysteries of our world. Let's shine a light on what lies in the darkness. Number 20. The Killing Stone. We're in Japan, where there are lots of stories about monsters and spirits. One story is about a fox spirit trapped in a stone. Recently, the stone cracked, and now people think the spirit is free again. Some say it's a nine-tailed fox that was stuck there for 900 years. If it's loose, strange things might happen. Number 19. The California Sphinx. This story is really interesting and surprising for many reasons. In 2017, people who study old things were working in the sandy areas of California. They found something unexpected, a face that looks like a sphinx. It's actually a copy of the Sphinx's face, probably made from plaster. If you're confused, don't worry. It's a whole model of the Sphinx, made for a movie called The 10 Commandments, which was made almost 100 years ago in 1923. When they made the movie, they built more than 20 sphinxes. After they finished filming, the director, Cecil B. DeMille, decided to bury everything in the sandy areas 175 miles to the northwest of Los Angeles. Even now, people are finding these buried things, like the Sphinx model, and it's really special and amazing to discover them. Number 18. Ancient Wolf. People often find it hard to believe that some animals alive today have existed since ancient times. This is especially true for some ocean creatures, but there are also land animals with long histories. A great example is the wolf, which has been around for tens of thousands of years. In 2018, a Russian man discovered something surprising while on a walk: a giant severed wolf head. This head wasn't just lying on the ground, it was preserved in the permafrost, keeping it in excellent condition. The man gave it to scientists, who found out that the wolf lived 40,000 years ago. Remarkably, its hair, teeth, and tongue were still intact. To give you an idea of how big this wolf was, its head measured 16 inches long, over a foot. Imagine how large the rest of its body must have been. For fans of Game of Thrones, this could have been a real-life dire wolf. Number 17. Ancient Phone. An item that looks like a modern phone in terms of size and shape. There's a place known as the Russian Atlantis. It's not an ancient civilization buried by the sea, but a location that's underwater most of the year. For a few weeks when the water goes down, archaeologists explore the area to see what they can find. One of their discoveries was the skeleton of a woman they named Natasha. While excavating her remains, they found a belt buckle shaped very much like an iPhone. Really, it does look like one. Check it out. The belt buckle is made of a gemstone called jet and is decorated with turquoise, carnelian, and mother of pearl. This iPhone is believed to be around 2,100 years old because those decorations were used as currency in the region back then. It's a unique belt buckle, and it makes you wonder why she was buried with something so valuable. Perhaps, like in other cultures, she was buried with valuable items to help her in the next life. Number 16. New kind of cloud. You see clouds every day, and you might remember from school that they come in many shapes, sizes, and forms. Some clouds block the sun, some bring rain, and others cause storms. Scientists have been studying clouds for a long time, so you'd think we know all about them by now. But in 2017, a new type of cloud was discovered, the first in 30 years. This new cloud, called volutus or roll cloud, was added to the cloud atlas. Roll clouds are rare, tube-shaped clouds that form horizontally at low levels. You can see pictures of them to understand what they look like. That's not all. Recently, photographers and citizen scientists have helped record new cloud features. They captured images of clouds dipping close to the ground or with wave patterns. This shows that even with something as common as clouds, there's still much to learn about them and their behaviors. Who knows what more we can discover about clouds and other natural phenomena in the future. Number 15. The Atari Trash Hoard. Let's go back to the early 1980s when video games were simple but very addictive. At that time, video games were a new and exciting thing for many people. The first generation of consoles and arcade machines were very popular and everyone wanted to play. However, things went wrong. The quality of the games and the consoles started to drop, and people stopped buying them. Stores ended up with too many games and consoles that they couldn't sell. A big part of this problem was caused by games like E.T., which was based on the popular movie but was considered one of the worst games ever made. This led to a major crash in the video game market in America. As a result, extra game cartridges and even some consoles were dumped in landfills and forgotten. Years later, people became interested in finding these old games and consoles, not to play them, but to sell them as collectibles. In 2014, a group of people decided to dig in a landfill where they knew some of these items were buried. They found the E.T. game cartridge, but they also discovered much more. They uncovered a huge collection of early 1980s Atari cartridges, unboxed games, promotional materials, booklets, and comics. These items were well preserved because they had been buried under 30 years' worth of trash, protecting them from water and oxygen damage. It was like finding a treasure chest full of gaming history, which made the diggers very happy. This story shows that what was once considered trash can become a treasure for others. As the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Number 14. Hammerhead worms. There are some things in the world that need our immediate attention, like poisons, oil leaks, and natural disasters such as fires. When it comes to animals, one of the main concerns is invasive species. In places like Florida, an invasive species can spread from a small area to everywhere within a week or two. Some well-known invasive species include certain snakes, but there are also lesser-known ones like snails and hammerhead worms. Unfortunately, hammerhead worms are spreading rapidly this year. Originally from Asia and Madagascar, they arrived in Europe and the United States in shipments of exotic plants. They have been in the US since the early 1900s and are mostly found in warm and humid states like Louisiana. However, as the climate warms, these worms are spreading further, which is bad news. Hammerhead worms produce a neurotoxin called tetrodotoxin, the same toxin found in the pufferfish, one of the most poisonous creatures in the world. This means touching the worm could be deadly, and if your pet eats one, it could die as well. Additionally, hammerhead worms eat other worms, like earthworms, which can disrupt the ecosystem, especially in farms. This is harmful to the environment. Number 13. Lake Michigan Stonehenge. It's always interesting to see what people name things when they discover them. For example, you might have heard about the so-called Lake Michigan Stonehenge. Divers found it by accident while searching for something else. To be clear, it's not a big monument or even a group of huge stones. The stones don't stick out of the ground. Instead, they form a mysterious line that stretches about a mile for no obvious reason. People have tried to understand these rocks, but progress has been slow. Local politics and the wishes of certain indigenous groups have complicated matters. Even so, it's an interesting topic, especially since Lake Michigan is usually known for its water, not for what's under it. If there's a Stonehenge in one of the Great Lakes, who knows what else might be hidden in the others? We might just have to explore and find out. Number 12. The eyeball. An eyeball washed up on a beach in Florida. The main reason this eyeball caused a fuss is that it was much bigger than anyone expected. People were curious about where it came from and what it belonged to. Many thought it might be from a large squid, so they took it to scientists for research. The scientists found out that it was the eye of a swordfish. Apparently, a fisherman had cut it out and thrown it into the sea. I'm not sure why he did that, but it certainly created an interesting mystery. Number 11. Dighton Rock. It's an ancient mystery that nobody has solved, even with modern technology. This makes it unique and special. Here's what we do know for sure. Before the year 1680, someone left a 40-ton message on a big rock in what is now Berkeley, Massachusetts. Who did it and what the message means are still unknown. The rock was discovered in 1680 by John Danforth, a recent Harvard graduate. He saw the rock in what was then the town of Dighton and made a drawing of the carvings. At the time, Danforth could only see the top part of the carvings because the rock was partly underwater. Later, the rest of the carvings were revealed. Since its discovery, people have come up with many theories about who made the carvings and what they mean. Whether we ever find out the true answers is still one of the many mysteries surrounding Dighton Rock. Number 10. Woolly mammoth bones. Here's something interesting. It's about woolly mammoths. We're still discovering their bones even today. It might not be surprising, but it's cool. In 2018, in Chelsea, Michigan, some guys were digging a ditch for a drainage pipe. Suddenly, they get something hard. They dug more and found woolly mammoth bones, including tusks. They called experts and kept digging. They found 20% of a full mammoth in a few hours. Woolly mammoths used to live in North America, but finding their remains is rare and special. Number 9. Mojave Phone Booth. The Mojave phone booth used to be an old-fashioned phone booth, but now, with everyone using cell phones, it's kind of outdated, except when it's in the Mojave Desert. Yes, there's a phone booth there, and it actually works. One day, a man found it in the desert and was really curious about it. He kept calling it to see who would answer. It turns out a woman was using it to make all her calls. So he did something smart. He made a website for it and shared the phone number. After that, lots of people started calling the phone booth. So the desert wasn't quiet anymore for a long time. Number 8. Dragonstone. A long time ago, an ancient culture asked the gods for protection. The gods gave them special stones, which turned out to be dragon eggs. These eggs hatched into dragons, helping the people rise up, but eventually, both the dragons and the kingdom disappeared. It's said that one of these dragon stones is still out there, waiting to be found, with a dragon inside ready to hatch. Although this is just a legend and not true, who wouldn't want a dragon, especially if it could be tamed? In reality, in 2020, a strange stone was found in Arkansas. It was about 2 feet long with markings that made it look like it had scales, similar to a dragon egg. Surprisingly, the person who found it just stumbled upon it in a field without needing to dig. So what is this stone? No one really knows. Some people think it looks like a fossilized turtle shell because of its size and pattern. While it's unlikely to be a dragon egg, calling it a dragonstone is pretty cool. Sometimes, the biggest mysteries are what we find beneath our feet. Number 7. Fish Ice Rink. This story is really strange. In 2016, people in Japan at Space World had a weird idea. They wanted to make their ice rink different by putting fish and other animals in the ice. They froze them inside the ice so that when people skated, they'd be skating over the animals. Yes, it sounds crazy, but it's true. However, many people didn't like this idea. They got mad and complained a lot, so the ice rink had to close down. The owner was surprised by all the negativity because the rink had been very popular since it opened, but because of the backlash, they decided to close it for good. Number 6. Robot Railway Repairman. Japan wants to fix its reputation, so let me tell you a really cool story. Japan is starting to use robots to do important jobs, like fixing railway tracks. But here's the thing, the robots aren't doing it on their own. They're controlled by someone wearing a special headset called VR. This person uses VR to control the robot and do the repairs. Why do they do this? Well, fixing railway tracks can be dangerous. If someone isn't careful, they could get hurt. Using a robot lowers the risk of accidents, which is something everyone can be happy about. Number 5. Tsunami Pod. Natural disasters are really hard to deal with and protect yourself from. They can happen suddenly and cause a lot of damage. This is especially true for tsunamis. They're difficult to predict, impossible to stop, and can wash away people, animals, and buildings. So how can you survive a tsunami if you can't get away from it? Well, there's a thing called a tsunami pod. It keeps you safe from the big waves when you're inside. It also protects you from getting crushed by debris. But there's a catch. The pod costs over $13,000. That's a lot of money, so not every family can afford it. Number 4. Gundam. In Japan, where anime comes from, there are big robots called Gundam. People control these robots to fight in wars. They're really cool. In 2020, Japan finished a project to make a Gundam that's 60 feet tall and weighs 24 tons. It can actually move. It's amazing. But sorry, you can't have one. It can't fly in space, and they're not making more right now. Still, it's incredible that they made one at all. It's like poetry in motion. Number 3. Rice murals. Don't underestimate what can happen when people work together to create something strange but beautiful. In Japan, there was a small village that needed more tourists to visit. They didn't have fancy attractions, but they did have rice paddies. So they decided to turn these paddies into artworks. These murals are so amazing that they surprise you with their creativity, size, and attention to detail. But it's not easy. Planning and making them takes a lot of time. Every year, more than 1,000 volunteers come together to make these murals happen. When you look at them, it's like they're popping out of the ground because they're so well made. Number 2. Traditional automatons. It's about a teacher in Japan who wanted to teach in a new way. She went to a festival and saw something amazing, a wooden doll called karakari. It could move on its own and serve tea. She was so impressed that she found the person who made it and learned how to make them herself. This story shows that inspiration can come from simple, traditional things. Number 1. River cubes. Imagine you're out fishing with your children, looking for interesting things in the water, perhaps by magnet fishing. This might sound strange, but it makes sense when you think about what's in the water these days. While fishing in a river in Coventry, a father named William found something unusual: 60 small cubes with detailed etchings. At first, they thought it was just debris, but on closer inspection, they realized it was something more special. During lockdown, magnet fishing was their regular activity. They had previously found keys, pennies, and other small items, but this time they found what looked like tiles. They were live streaming to friends on Facebook when they bent down and picked them up, realizing they might be rocks. As they showed them to the camera, more cubes appeared. Viewers of the live feed were amazed by these tiny cubes. After some research, they discovered the cubes were used in Indian rituals as prayer cubes. The writings on them are meant to send different prayers or wishes into running water, like a river. This explained why there were so many in the river. Don't forget to check out other interesting things on the screen. See you next time.